Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Prescription Drugs What You Need to Know presentation. My name is Jade, and I am with Join Together North Nevada, and I will be presenting to you guys today. So before we begin, please make sure you have a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil for some note-taking. You're going to want to take some notes because there is a quiz at the end of the presentation. So with that being said, let's get started. All right, so here I have a video to start off the presentation. This video is all about how our brain development can be affected by external factors like prescription pills. So I'm going to play this for you guys right now.
As teens, people are always telling us what we can't do. Do you ever wonder why that is? Why can't I stay up late? What could happen if I just play for 15 more minutes? Who cares if I smoke a joint every now and then? Let's face it, adults may mean well, but they can't really explain why they won't let us do this stuff. The thing is, there's actually a really cool explanation, and it has to do with our brains. From the outside, the brain of a newborn looks just like a smaller version of an adult brain, but there's a big difference. There's a ton of stuff that still needs to be programmed into a young person's brain. That's where our life experiences come in. How we interact with what's around us shapes our brains until we're in our mid-20s. We can't feel our brains changing, but they are super busy building circuits and programming. So how does this happen? Every little thing that happens to us can change our brain in huge ways. At short distances, our experiences can make or break connections between brain cells. By guiding the creation of circuits, experiences shape our perceptions, memories, and everything that makes us unique. But they also affect our brain across longer distances. This involves the construction of thick bundles of fibers that connect different brain regions. By creating this complex network, experiences help increase the brain's bandwidth, allowing it to work better and better. But you gotta keep in mind, these short and long-range connections are influenced by everything we do and everything that happens to us. But this is awesome news. It means we are the programmers of our brains. Every decision, good or bad, influences how our brain develops. Let's talk about taking drugs. For example, pretend this is the keyboard you are using to program your brain. Using drugs just for fun or to get high would be like scrambling the letters on the keyboard. Now, if you scramble the letters on the keyboard after the program is written, that can lead to temporary errors or make it hard for the program to run for a while. But if you scramble the letters while the program is being written, the program can incorporate catastrophic, long-lasting glitches. This is why teens are better off without drugs. We are in the middle of coding our brains, and drugs can cause real problems that can last a long time. And yet, drugs are just one of the many possible ways of scrambling our keyboards. For example, not enough sleep, lack of exercise, or eating too much junk food can also harm our brain programs. So yeah, I get it. It's annoying to be told what we can and can't do, but I would rather focus on my ability to shape my brain through smarter decisions. It turns out we have far more control than we thought. We can use this information to choose our own paths and give ourselves the best possible futures.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. I'm going to give you guys a couple seconds to finish up on any notes that you guys may be taking on that, and then we will continue. All right, so what are prescription drugs? So prescription drugs are often strong medications that are prescribed by a doctor. So they can be helpful, but they can also be harmful. The only safe way to take prescription drugs if they are prescribed to you by a doctor. If they're not prescribed to you by a doctor, they can be really harmful to you. So the most commonly abused prescription drugs are typically the drugs used for pain and anxiety. So in today's presentation, we are going to be focusing on 3 types of prescription drugs. So those are opioids, stimulants, and depressants. So we are going to start with opioids. So opioids are used as medicines because they contain chemicals that relax the body and they're used to relieve pain. They are used to treat pain, but can also be used to treat coughing and diarrhea. So it really just depends what your doctor is prescribing them for you for. So they are a class of drugs that include the illegal drug heroin, which I'm sure all of you guys have heard of before. Fentanyl is also a type of opioid, but it is a synthetic opioid. So basically that just means it was man-made and it's not, it doesn't come naturally from that poppy plant. So other common names that you might have heard opioids go under include happy pills, OC, Oxy, Oxycontin, Perks, and Vikes. Examples of opioids would include Vicodin, Oxycontin, and codeine. All right, so let me move myself so you can read that. All right, so opioids, how do they make us feel? So opioids can make people feel very relaxed and give them that high euphoric feeling, which is why a lot of people, unfortunately, seek them out even though they're not prescribed them. So this can be really dangerous because opioids can be highly addictive, and overdoses and deaths are unfortunately really common because of that. Heroin is one of the world's most dangerous opioids and is never used as a medicine in the United States. So you're never going to see a doctor prescribe heroin to any of his or her patients. All right, so how do they affect our brain? So opioids bind to areas of the body that are involved in feelings of pain and pleasure. So that's why we feel that high euphoric sensation when we are taking opioids. Opioids block pain signals from the body and instead release large amounts of dopamine throughout your body. So dopamine is that chemical that makes us feel happiness. So it's basically replacing pain with happiness. So you can see why some people get really addicted to this. All right, so I have another video for you guys, and this one is focused on what happens to your brain on opioids.
This is Susan. Susan loves to bike. While out for a ride, she falls and breaks her arm. Special cells called neurons send a signal through the spinal cord to the brain, which interprets the signal as pain. Susan understands the pain means she needs to go to the hospital, and her body is equipped for survival, helping her not to panic so she can seek help. Many of her neurons are covered in proteins called opioid receptors. These receptors act like a brake to slow down the neuron's ability to send pain signals. When injured, her body releases natural painkillers called endorphins. Like a key in a lock, endorphins activate opioid receptors, slowing down the pain signal and preventing a panic. Susan gets treated for the broken bone, but 3 months later, her arm still hurts. And now that pain is making her feel depressed and anxious. So her doctor prescribes an opioid painkiller. There are many different opioids, but they all share a chemical similarity to our own endorphins. This allows them to bind to the same opioid receptors and stop pain signals. But that's not all they do. Deep inside Susan's brain is a region called the ventral tegmental area, or VTA for short. The VTA is full of neurons that produce a chemical called dopamine. When something good happens, dopamine is released, giving Susan a feeling of pleasure. This helps teach her brain to keep seeking out good things. To keep dopamine neurons in check, inhibitory neurons keep the brakes on until something good comes along. Just like the pain neuron, these neurons are covered in opioid receptors. When Susan takes the painkiller prescribed by her doctor, the opioid receptors turn off the inhibitory neurons and release the brake on the dopamine neurons. The rush of dopamine temporarily eliminates Susan's depression and anxiety, and she feels relief, calmness, and even euphoria. As Susan continues to take the painkillers, her brain responds by trying to regain its balance. Her inhibitory neurons work extra hard, even when the opioid receptors are activated, and it becomes harder and harder for her dopamine neurons to release dopamine. Susan finds that she needs to increase her dose of painkillers in order to feel comfortable. This is called tolerance. Eventually, Susan's pills run out. Inhibitory neurons that had been working overtime are let loose, clamping down on those dopamine neurons and shutting them off almost completely. Now, not only is Susan in pain, but the depression and anxiety come back. On top of that, Susan feels ravaged by an inescapable physical sickness far worse than any flu. Susan's body is going through withdrawal. Most people who take opioids for a long time tend to experience some withdrawal, but they can still stop taking the pills and return to normal. But for people like Susan, it's not so easy. Her genetics and the environment she grew up in put her at a higher risk for addiction. Her withdrawal symptoms aren't just unpleasant, they're unbearable. Susan thinks the only way to feel normal is to find more opioids. And this is how the cycle of opioid addiction emerges, driven by a brain trying to regain its balance. But there is hope for Susan. Though the road to recovery can be challenging and there may be setbacks, treatment can retrain Susan's brain. With the help of medication and therapy, Susan finds pleasure in her life once again.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. It's a great explanation of how opioids affect your brain because it told a story along with it. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. So let's get back into opioids and talk about the health effects that it has on our body. So the health effects include drowsiness, confusion, nausea, constipation, euphoria, so that high feeling that we were talking about earlier, and slowed breathing. And slowed breathing can lead to hypoxia in some patients. All right, so withdrawal symptoms. So like that video said, when someone becomes addicted to opioids, they may experience some withdrawal symptoms. So these symptoms include muscle and bone pain, sleeping problems, diarrhea and vomiting, cold flashes with goosebumps, uncontrollable leg movements, and severe cravings. So definitely very uncomfortable, non-desirable symptoms. All right, so can you overdose on opioids? So yes, people can and have overdosed on opioids. So when someone overdoses on opioids, their breathing often just slows or stops altogether. During an overdose on opioids, this decreases the amount of oxygen that reaches the brain, which can result in a coma, permanent brain damage, or death. So overdosing on opioids doesn't lead to death immediately, but it definitely does have some serious side effects to your body. All right, so we are done with opioids and we are going to head into stimulants. So stimulants are used for treating attention deficit hyperactivity disorders, also known as ADHD, and narcolepsy, so uncontrollable episodes of deep sleep. So stimulants in general increase alertness, attention, and energy. They increase your brain activity. So common names that you may have heard stimulants called are bennies, black beauties, hearts, roses, Skippy, the smart drug, speed, and vitamin R, and uppers. Examples of that include Adderall and Ritalin. So because one of the common names is smart drugs, a lot of students unfortunately abuse this drug because it helps increase their alertness and attention. So a lot of people abuse this for studying or just staying awake to study longer. So health effects of stimulants. I'm going to move myself again to the side. All right. So health effects of the stimulants. So increased blood pressure and heart rate, increased breathing, decreased blood flow, increased blood sugar, and opening up of breathing passages. Health effects also include psychosis, so just feeling really out of touch with reality and possibly paranoid. You can also feel a lot of mood swings, especially feelings of anger. So again, health effects of stimulants. So at high doses, stimulants can be extremely dangerous. So people will experience really high body temperatures, irregular heartbeats, which can lead to heart failures and seizures, especially if they're being abused by a young person, especially your guys' age where your brain is not fully yet developed. That can have a lot of serious side effects. So how do prescription stimulants affect the brain and the body? So stimulants increase the activity of the brain chemicals dopamine and norepinephrine. So again, like we saw with the opioids, dopamine is that chemical that gives you that happy feeling. So it reinforces rewarding behaviors. So if you're taking stimulants and your body is releasing dopamine into your body and you feel happy because of that, your body is going to start associating stimulants with a good thing. So you can see how that can lead into addiction. Norepinephrine, on the other hand, affects blood vessels, blood pressure, heart rate, blood sugar, and breathing. So norepinephrine increases all of these things. So, like I said before, people abuse stimulants to help them study more, to help them stay more alert and awake. So the question here is, do prescription stimulants make you smarter? So there's a really big myth that taking prescription stimulants improve mental performance. So taking prescription stimulants for reasons other than treating ADHD or narcolepsy could lead to very harmful health effects. So addiction, like I said, definitely number one thing that is a huge risk. Other things include heart problems and psychosis. So the study drug, one of the common names for stimulants. So I'm going to play this for you guys right now, and this focuses on Adderall, so a very common prescribed stimulant prescription drug.
Adderall is the brand name for a mixture of amphetamine salts that was developed for treatment of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, aka ADHD. Since 2007, prescriptions have doubled in the US, and even those who don't have a prescription are using. An estimated 30% of university students use Adderall at some point as a study enhancer. But what happens to your brain on Adderall? Adderall is a combination of amphetamine salts, and therefore is, yup, a close relative of methamphetamine, commonly known as meth. When Adderall is ingested, it takes effect on the brain within an hour of use. Adderall affects neuroreceptors in the central nervous system, increasing the effect of serotonin and dopamine. In patients with ADHD, genetic studies have indicated that these individuals may have dysfunctional dopamine release. Because of the lack of dopamine, it is theorized that the brain is constantly seeking out stimulants, resulting in the distractibility commonly seen in ADHD patients. The dopamine and serotonin released by Adderall overcomes this deficit in ADHD patients, causing increased focus and making you feel less distracted. Adderall also causes the release of norepinephrine, which activates the sympathetic nervous system, initiating your fight or flight response. This results in your body moving blood and energy towards the major organs and away from your limbs and digestion, which essentially increases alertness. But in non-ADHD users, can it help you get better grades? To investigate this, researchers had 32 people without ADHD perform 4 cognitive tests. In one instance, they were given 10 milligrams of Adderall and was told it was Adderall. In the second, they were given a placebo, but was told it was Adderall. In the third round, they were given 10 milligrams of Adderall, but was told it was a placebo. And finally, they were given a placebo and were indeed told it was a placebo. The 2 groups that did the best were those who thought they had taken Adderall, regardless of whether they had or not. In fact, the group that did the worst were those who took Adderall but was told it was placebo. This is because, although some studies have found that Adderall can increase repetitive learning tasks, it does not make a difference when it comes to most cognitive tasks or complex learning techniques like those needed for an exam. Any increase in studying skills may be from the fact that the drug gives you energy and can help keep you awake for a night of studying because, as we said earlier, it is similar in chemical structure to meth. The benefits of Adderall in academic circles is still up for debate, but the long-term detrimental effects of Adderall abuse are clear. Consistent release of serotonin and dopamine causes the brain to stop producing them naturally over time. Therefore, you need to keep taking more and more Adderall to get the same effect, making it highly addictive. Long-term users of Adderall developed an inability to feel pleasure without a chemical stimulant, and these effects can linger even after you stop taking Adderall. Adderall is a growing problem, so much so that millennials have been referred to as Generation Adderall. The abuse of Adderall in our culture is following a similar pattern to the current opioid crisis, which means, as a society, we need to put measures in place to protect people.
Thanks to Sal, our editor, for narrating this video, and wow, turns out Adderall is pretty intense.
But if you do need help with your exams or school, we have some scientific study tips and other advice over in a bunch of videos we've made. We'll put some there and in the description below.
Thanks so much. Make sure you're subscribed for a new video next Thursday. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Super high energy, really good information. And if you are interested in that channel to check out more of their videos, their channel was called ASAP Science.
Adderall is
All right, so again, with stimulants, can you overdose on prescription stimulants? So answer, yes, yes, you can. So symptoms of overdosing on stimulants can include restlessness, tremors, overactive reflexes, rapid breathing, confusion, aggressions, hallucinations, panic, fever, muscle pains, weakness, and the list goes on, guys, especially like I said, that you guys are still developing your young brains. All of these things can have a really detrimental impact to the rest of your life. Because your brains are still developing, it's going to take a really long time, if it actually can, for your brain to recover from all of this. And a lot of times brain damage does occur and the brain can't recover. So it's really important to just stick to prescription medications that are actually prescribed to you by your doctor. If they are not prescribed to you by your doctor, please stay away from them. They can have really harmful effects. So as you can see on the other side of the list I didn't read out, there's a lot more symptoms that are related to overdosing on prescription stimulants, all really serious. So stimulants and addiction. So we were talking about how when you take stimulants, that dopamine is released into your body. So you're feeling that sense of euphoria. So you can see that a lot of people obviously would like to feel euphoric and to feel happy. So it could really lead to addiction really quickly. So a long-term use can lead to addiction, but because you guys are so young, you just don't know your threshold for how much it takes to be addicted. So maybe it takes an older adult, years of use to become addicted, but it may take you guys only one time use to be addicted. So that's why it's really important to just listen to your doctor when it comes to these prescription drugs. So the withdrawal symptoms include fatigue, depression, and sleeping problems. And behavioral therapies can be effective in helping someone with a stimulant addiction. But again, let's just try to avoid addiction and just take these if they are prescribed to you by a doctor. All right, so that is it for stimulants. We are going to get into depressants now, that third class of prescription drugs. So depressants are the opposites of stimulants. So you saw that stimulants increase brain activity in a lot of the systems in our body. So depressants, being the opposite of that, will depress or decrease that brain activity and other symptoms in our body. So depressants include medications that include sedatives, tranquilizers, and hypnotics. So they are used to relieve anxiety or help a person sleep. They are most often prescribed to treat sleep disorders like insomnia. And there are different classes of drug classes under depressants. So how do depressants affect the brain? So like I said, the opposite of stimulants, depressants inhibits brain activity. So it slows it down, and it really doesn't stop it completely, but it really slows down. The health effects of depressants, as you can see, it's a really big list. It includes slurred speech, poor concentration, confusion, headache, lightheadedness, dizziness, dry mouth, problems with moving, problems with memory, lowered blood pressure, and slowed breathing. So as you can see, that depressant really depressing a lot of these normal functions. All right, again, can you overdose on depressants? And yes, unfortunately, a lot of people can and have. So the symptoms include slowed breathing. Your breathing can also just stop, and it can cause hypoxia. And hypoxia can have short and long-term mental effects. And it can affect your nervous system. So like I said, with the other prescription drugs, you can have permanent brain damage from that. Sometimes the brain can recover, but especially at your guys' age, like I said, your brain is not yet developed, so it doesn't have that capacity to really protect you as much as it can as if it was fully developed. You can also go into a coma if you overdose on depressants. So depressants and addiction. Let me move myself again. Alrighty. So people who are addicted to depressants should not attempt to stop taking them on their own, as withdrawal symptoms are super severe. So basically, if someone is addicted to depressants, they cannot stop cold turkey, or else it can kill them, because those withdrawal symptoms are just so intense. So those who are addicted to depressants need to go through a medically supervised detox. So you need to go see your doctor, and a doctor needs to determine your plan in order to get off these depressants. So the dosages that an individual takes should be tapered gradually. So instead of stopping cold turkey, you are going to stop little by little until you are no longer taking depressants. So continuing on with depressants and addiction, the withdrawal symptoms, like I said, super intense, super fatal. They include seizures, shakiness, anxiety, agitation, insomnia, overactive reflexes. So it looks like you're twitching a lot, increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, high temperature without sweating, hallucinations, and severe cravings. So let's talk about prescription drugs just in general. So I want to go over tolerance, dependence, and addiction. So these are all different characteristics that we see when people are dependent and addicted to prescription drugs. So tolerance is when an individual needs more and more of a drug to get that same effect. So think about it with a cup of coffee. If an adult takes or drinks a cup of coffee every single morning for weeks to help him or her stay awake, that's all good and dandy. But if you're doing it every day for weeks at a time, at some point you might need 2 cups of coffee to feel awake and alert. So it's the same thing with drugs. You take 1 pill every other day, and then suddenly you need 2 pills to feel the effects that you used to feel with just 1. So tolerance and drugs go hand in hand. The more you take a drug, the higher your tolerance goes, and the more you need that drug. The second characteristic is dependence. So after repeated use, the absence of the drug causes physiological reactions ranging from mild to severe. So once you are dependent on the drug, your brain starts to think that you need this drug to survive, or you need this drug to be functioning. And it becomes a pathway to addiction, which leads to that third step, addiction. So addiction is compulsive or uncontrollable drug seeking, and despite harmful consequences and long-lasting changes in the brain. So addiction means you are getting this drug no matter what, no matter if you are in trouble with the police, your parents, no matter if it's causing your body more harm than good, your body is convinced that if you do not have this drug, you will die. So how do people misuse prescription drugs? So people misuse them simply by taking it if they are not prescribed, or in another way that wasn't prescribed. So you're taking your friend's prescription drug, or your doctor says, all right, I want you to take 1 pill every other day, but you're taking 2 pills every day. And misuse of prescription drugs also involves taking the medicine for the effect to get high. So you are taking this drug not for your sleeping problems, not for anxiety, but just to feel high. So it's really important just to take pills as they are prescribed to you, especially at your guys' age. So when a doctor prescribes a prescription to anyone, they are considering their medical history, their height, their weight, their BMI. So you can only imagine if a doctor prescribes one dose to a big, hefty man and a small girl takes the one dose that's meant for that larger man, you can see how one dose for him might be an overdose for her. So it's really important just to take medication as they are prescribed to you and to you only. So we are going to watch this video. So this is on symptoms of prescription drug abuse.
The smell of someone's breath or clothes, bloodshot eyes, slurred words. The symptoms of alcohol or marijuana use are obvious and familiar. But what does it look like when someone is under the influence of an abused prescription drug? The symptoms of prescription drug abuse tend to be more subtle and difficult to identify. The symptoms also vary based on the prescription drug being abused. Some symptoms are visible when a person is under the influence of an abused prescription drug. For example, abusers of all prescription drugs may demonstrate excessive mood swings or hostility. Among people abusing opioid painkillers and depressants, the most common visible symptoms are confusion, drowsiness, poor coordination or clumsiness, and poor judgment. In contrast, the most common visible symptoms of stimulant abuse are agitation, irritability, and appearing to be high, unusually energetic, or revved up. Other symptoms appear as a pattern of behavior over time. You may notice increased secrecy or anger when being questioned about activities or whereabouts, apathy, loss of interest in favorite activities, or a lack of energy, change in appearance, including poor hygiene, drastic changes in eating or sleeping habits, and dramatic changes in school performance, including skipping school. What is more, there may be clues in the home that someone you know is abusing prescription drugs. These clues include cash and other valuables missing from your home, prescription drug bottles without labels or labeled with another person's name, loose pills in a pocket, purse, or bag, and missing pills from a family member's prescription or having to refill a prescription earlier than expected. Because prescription drugs affect the brain and body, overdoses of these drugs can cause changes in heart rate, breathing, and even death. If a person is unresponsive, call 911 immediately and share your concerns about prescription drug abuse with medical professionals.
All right, guys, so hopefully you were able to get some good information out of that video. So if you ever notice anyone with any of those symptoms that I described or any of the videos described, please call 911 and help that person get help, because it could have a really serious effect to their life, and it could even end their life. So it's really important to just be aware of those symptoms. All right, so let's talk about substance use disorder and addiction. So like we talked about previously, long-term use can lead a person to develop a tolerance. So they need more and more of that drug to feel that same feeling. So people who are addicted to depressants, again, should not attempt to stop taking them on their own, as withdrawal symptoms are severe. So again, if someone is addicted to depressants, they need to see a doctor if they want to stop. Oops. All right, so let's talk about the life effects of taking prescription drugs. So other than the health effects, using prescription drugs that are not prescribed to you can lead to other life effects. So things outside of your health. So failure to meet responsibilities at work, school, or home. You guys saw all of these symptoms involved in taking any of the 3 classes of prescription drugs. So If you are taking it to help you focus on school, it may be doing that, but it's also probably ruining a lot of your other bodily symptoms. So it's definitely not worth it. You know, we can do other things to help us feel that euphoric high or in order to feel focused. So things like getting enough sleep, drinking coffee or tea in the morning, having a well-balanced diet, all of those things can help us gain a lot of energy. As for feeling that euphoric high, you know, that is doing hobbies that we like, watching sports, playing sports, doing art, listening to music, all of those things can help us feel happiness that a lot of people are seeking using these drugs. And again, always, if you are struggling finding things to do with that, your counselor is a really great resource to talk to about any of those things. So let's talk about refusal skills. So if you are ever offered prescription pills, it's obviously a lot easier said than done to say no. Saying no to friends or family is definitely not easy. So if they truly respect and care for you, they will respect your decision, even if it doesn't line up with theirs. So they can agree to disagree. If you can have a different favorite sports team than them, you can have a different opinion when it comes to taking prescription pills that are not prescribed to you. So don't think of it as ever refusing your friends or your family, but you're just refusing to damage your brain and your body, especially at your guys' age. So when you are saying no to someone, even if it's a friend or a family member, you need to be firm and strong in your decision. And you can even offer other ideas to taking the drugs if you have to. So some of the things that you can say is, no way, I have to drive tonight. Yeah, right. My mom would kill me if I came home high, and sorry, I just don't feel safe doing that. It's also really helpful to have like a code conversation or word with your family or your friends. So if you're ever at a party and someone is offering you things that you're uncomfortable with, or if you're just uncomfortable in general, it's really a great idea to have a game plan beforehand. So maybe tell your mom, hey mom, if I ever ask you what time is dinner on Sunday, it's not me actually asking what's for dinner on Sunday. It's code for please pick me up right now. I am in a unsafe situation, something like that. Or even if you want to do code, you can text your mom code red and she knows immediately that means to pick you up. So you can do this with your friends or your family. So it's important to have a way out. All right, so let's practice these refusal skills. So since you guys have a piece of paper, you guys can write down things that you would realistically say. So up on the screen, I have a chart of different categories of refusal techniques. And this is really cool because we're all really different and we're all comfortable with different things. So the categories kind of represent those different ways of saying no. So for example, one of the categories is simple. So literally very simple. You can just say no thanks. You don't even have to say thank you. You can just say no. Declarative, you are declaring that you do not drink drugs or you do not drink or do drugs. So it's no, and then you're declaring why. Excuses, giving me an excuse. So no, I'm the designated driver. No, my parents are strict. No, my parents drug test me. No, I play sports and they drug test me and I have a game next week. Any of those things work. Alternatives, so this is you offering another idea instead of taking the pills. So no, but can I grab water instead? Or no, let's not do that. How about we play basketball outside? No, how about we play video games? And then the reversal. So these are for the people who really feel confident. They're not shy. So it's no, why are you messing with that crap? No, I thought we were friends. Why are you forcing me or asking me to take these things? Don't you care about me and my brain type of thing? So I want to give you guys a minute right now. I want you guys to really figure out what you are comfortable saying. Because like I said, again, a lot of people are not going to be comfortable with giving the reversal approach. Some of you are going to be comfortable with the excuses. Some of you just want to just say no and that's it. So I want you guys to write on your piece of paper, what would you realistically say to a friend or a family member that is offering you prescription drugs? Now I'm going to give you a minute to look through the chart again and write down what you would realistically use. All right, guys. So hopefully you were able to write down something that you would actually truly realistically say to someone. So I'm going to play another video for you guys. So this is a video, How to Say No to Drugs. It's really great because it shows situations that could actually happen to you and their responses to it.
When you're a teenager, you're constantly bombarded with good and bad advice, life lessons, homework, chores, and peer pressure. Often that pressure comes in the form of drugs and alcohol. It can be very difficult to say no at this age because you're afraid others will think you're lame or that you might get rejected by some of your peers. Even though you might know the real dangers of using drugs and alcohol, you still might have a hard time saying no. Well, the key to saying no is to practice what you'll say before you get in a situation where you're offered drugs or alcohol. That way, when the time comes, you're ready. Take some of these peer pressure related statements, for instance.
Come on, everybody's doing drugs.
Your response?
I think plenty of people aren't doing drugs. Anyway, it's not right for me.
Perfect. Here's another one.
Hey, probably make you feel good.
And you say,
I already feel pretty good, and I don't want to mess that up.
nothing wrong with that. Let's try a few more, like,
Dude, if you're my friend, you'll get high with me.
your response?
I really like you. I just don't like drugs.
And let's not forget these.
Come on, dude. Nobody will know.
And
This is really cool stuff, man.
you fire back with,
I'm not taking any chances. I'd be grounded for life if I got caught.
and
I know someone who got really sick from that. That's not cool at all.
arming yourself with a wide range of reasons not to do drugs or alcohol is a great way to keep yourself free from using a substance that you know can harm you or your friends. You might even set such an example that your peers will respect you and try to emulate you or come to you for advice. So don't be afraid to rehearse your reasons to say no and put them into practice when the time comes.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video as well. I thought a lot of the situations that they showed in the video were pretty realistic and I could definitely see happening.
When you're a teen,
All right, guys, so that is the end of the presentation. So on this screen, I just have some resources that you guys can go to if you want more information on prescription drugs or you're unclear of anything that I said. The first one is my organization's website. The second one is the DEA. And then the third one is drugabuse.gov, really great fact sheets on any of these prescription drugs that I was talking about. And if you guys have any questions on anything I said, you can email me at learning@jtnn.org. So I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation and don't forget to review your notes before you take the quiz. And I hope you guys have a really great day. Thank you guys so much for listening.